Well, let's remember, what did just last week Stephen A was on air bragging about the people he stood up for to get paid and how many, Cam, I did it for Shannon Sharp and I did it for this person and that person. And when I look at the abrupt, like, nah, I'm not coming into work tomorrow,
Yeah.
that also is like, maybe there's pointing the finger at Stephen A.
Molly Qerim dropped a bomb on Instagram that nobody saw coming. On September 16th, she accused Stephen A. Smith, her longtime sparring partner on First Take, of setting her up behind the scenes. The post exploded online within minutes, and ESPN went into full-blown crisis mode. Executives rushed into emergency meetings, PR teams scrambled for talking points, and sponsors started calling non-stop. Two major advertisers, one from a top sports drink brand and another from a daily fantasy platform, were reportedly demanding answers, asking who approved her sudden removal and why it was happening now of all times. There was no time to polish the story. Kareem's contract was abruptly terminated, her access was revoked, and her desk cleared out before she could even issue a statement. Meanwhile, Stephen A. hit the airwaves the next morning, but fans noticed something was off. The usual confidence was gone. Instead of his trademark bravado, he looked tense, reserved, like a man who knew the walls were closing in. By noon that same day, ESPN's higher-ups had already pushed out an official line, claiming Kareem had simply left after renewal talks fell through. Burke Magnus, ESPN's president of content, even told The Athletic, "There's no controversy here. There's no shoe that's going to drop."
More details have been released as to why Molly Qerim abruptly quit ESPN. And when I say abruptly quit, I mean she left work, I think it was on Monday, and she never...
Yeah, right. Behind the cameras, things were a mess. Multiple staffers say Kareem was yanked out of meetings with no explanation, and her name was scrubbed from show graphics before her Instagram post even stopped trending. Internal emails ordered employees not to discuss the matter publicly, which only made people talk even more. And when Stephen A. opened First Take the next morning, he kept it clean, praising Kareem for her class and dignity, but not once did he explain why she disappeared overnight. The fallout was instant. ESPN launched a frantic 30-45-day hunt for her replacement, already floating 3 big names on internal calls. But with the story spreading faster than they could contain it, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a quiet exit. This was a full-blown scandal in motion. The core of Molly Qerim's accusation went way beyond a simple contract issue. It hit like a dagger to the heart of trust itself. She claimed Stephen A. Smith played both sides, smiling in her face on camera while secretly dragging her name through the mud behind closed doors. According to her, he fed management negative feedback about her performance while pretending everything was good between them. And then, the so-called receipts started rolling in. Screenshots and chat logs allegedly from ESPN staff began circulating, showing that Stephen had held private meetings with producers, meetings that didn't include Kareem. Even more suspicious, one of her top discussion segments mysteriously vanished from the replay lineup right after their tense on-air clash. Insiders claimed that wasn't an accident at all. It was part of a quiet campaign to push her out.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
2 production staffers even said Smith wanted her gone so he could secure his massive new deal, reportedly a jaw-dropping $100 million contract that got fast-tracked within hours of Kareem's exit. Naturally, that sent ESPN's legal department into overdrive. Lawyers were suddenly getting outside inquiries asking whether Kareem's firing had anything to do with Smith's money, bonuses, or exclusivity clause. ESPN's official stance: no connection whatsoever. But viewers weren't buying it, especially after Stephen went live and fumbled his own explanation. "It's not as if I know all the details," he told fans, right before listing off private contract terms and timeline specifics that only top execs could know.
A lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, rather, she made a decision.
That contradiction had people shaking their heads. And it didn't stop there. A rival host from another network jumped in with a sharp jab asking who signed off and why now. By the next day, September 17th, the whispers turned into headlines. A former ESPN road manager claimed Kareem had been offered a fat payout in exchange for silence. An NDA deal to keep everything buried. Neither Kareem nor her agent commented publicly. But then came the move that sent social media into meltdown. Karim posted a cryptic "stay tuned" on Instagram just hours after ESPN's official statement. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. It was just heating up. By this point, the story had spiraled far beyond gossip.
She was quitting right now. Both ESPN and Molly Qerim, they are trying to polish the... They're trying to make this look like an amicable divorce. And look, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe they couldn't come to an agreement and they agreed to amicably part ways. I'm more interested in...
It was turning into a full-blown legal storm waiting to erupt. 3 separate sports law attorneys reviewed the timeline and agreed on one thing. Molly Qerim might be gearing up to sue both Stephen A. Smith and ESPN. The possible charges? A hostile work environment and wrongful termination, the exact same playbook used in some of ESPN's ugliest past scandals. And apparently, it's not just talk. Reporters from 2 major digital outlets claimed they've seen early drafts of what looks like a legal complaint already being passed around privately. No filings have hit the court system yet, but if those drafts are real, then this quiet tension could explode any day now. Inside ESPN's Bristol headquarters, the mood was pure chaos. One member of the social media team admitted that management ordered a complete blackout on anything related to Molly Qerim.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years.
No tweets, no tags, no best moments clips, nothing. A senior PR insider even warned that network partners were reaching out with unusually aggressive questions about the reputational fallout if things got uglier. Sponsors were nervous, reporters were circling, and executives were running out of ways to contain the narrative. Meanwhile, Stephen A. tried to regain control the only way he knew how, by talking. He flooded his radio show with emotional tributes and warm reflections about Molly.
The other thing I thought, Steve, was when you pay Stephen A. Smith $20 million, that means, okay, well, whoever his co-host is, they're going to want an exorbitant amount of money. And so she may have been making $2.5, $3 million as the host. Well, when Stephen A. is sitting there making 20, well, maybe now she wants to make 10.
Repeating over and over, Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. We've been partners on the show for 10 years. But instead of calming things down, those words hit flat, even fake to some viewers. Especially when their old clips from the spring started resurfacing online. Awkward interactions, weird tension, and moments that suddenly looked a lot different under this new light. The more he spoke, the more people wondered, was Stephen trying to clear his name or just getting ahead of what might come next? The internet went wild after one particular clip resurfaced, and it wasn't a good look for Stephen A.
I think we'll start with Molly Qerim. She, yesterday when we talked, we knew that she was leaving, but we didn't know she was leaving like immediately. Which is an indication that, man, this thing's a bit more complicated than just they couldn't settle on the money. It just seems more seriously. She's off the show.
In the viral video, he snapped at Molly Qerim mid-commercial break, allegedly scolding her for eating on set. Fans were outraged, flooding comment sections, accusing him of overstepping and treating her disrespectfully. And then, another bomb dropped. A separate segment, mysteriously cut from the show's VR archive, where Karim publicly corrected him on air after one of his condescending jokes. The tension was thick enough to slice through the screen, and viewers caught every second of it. But according to multiple former ESPN producers, those moments were only the tip of the iceberg. Internal meeting notes and staff memos allegedly showed a pattern. Stephen A. had become increasingly confrontational with Karim in the months leading up to her sudden exit. What the audience saw on screen was just a fraction of what was happening behind the scenes.
When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up. Mm-hmm. And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN. And so that made me, is she going to Fox Sports?
His tone, they said, had shifted from friendly debate to flat-out domination, and people inside the building were beginning to take notice. Yet, while fans and insiders were still processing the drama, Stephen A. was already leveling up. Just 48 hours after Karim's statement blew up online, ESPN dropped a flashy announcement. Smith was expanding his empire, a bigger Monday Night Football presence, and more control across both NBA and NFL coverage. The timing couldn't have been more suspicious. Viewers immediately pointed out how fast the company moved to celebrate him, while Karim's side of the story was still unfolding. Behind the scenes, things looked even messier. Two on-air personalities quietly admitted that ESPN scrambled to push Malika Andrews' new contract announcement early, just to shift attention away from the backlash. And Stephen A., his tone was all over the place. One moment, he called the situation uncomfortable. The next, he got defensive, snapping that the details are none of your business. But critics weren't fooled. They noticed how often he played dumb while still dropping insider contract details that only top brass should have known.
Jason, I actually watched that whole video clip of Stephen A. Smith. I just thought it was funny. It ain't none of y'all business. It was a contract negotiation. So that was about the money. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for cluing us. It's always about the money, though. It's like in boxing. Why didn't this fight happen? Easy. There wasn't enough.
For someone claiming to be out of the loop, Stephen A. sure sounded like a man holding a whole lot of inside information, and that raised even more questions about what really went down behind closed doors. By this point, the walls were closing in on Stephen A. Smith, and everyone could feel it. The tension skyrocketed after former ESPN analyst Emmanuel Acho publicly called him out on a rival radio show, and he didn't hold back one bit. Acho roasted Stephen A. for his double talk, saying, "Don't tell us you don't know the details, then share details no one else has." That shot landed hard because it summed up exactly what fans had been saying online. Stephen A. was trying to play innocent while casually revealing information that only insiders should have known. And as his credibility took a hit, the wave of support for Molly Qerim only grew louder. Across social media, hashtags like #StanWithMolly and #BoycottFirstTake exploded within 18 hours of her post. Sponsors started taking notice too, reportedly flagging ESPN's internal comms with questions about whether the backlash could affect ad placements. Kareem's supporters claimed it was proof of foul play, that she'd been pushed out to protect a brand built around one man. Meanwhile, ESPN's top brass stuck to their script, denying any connection between Kareem's sudden departure and the flurry of new contracts being handed out around the same time.
Sometimes when you have someone abruptly quit a job, they're not leaving on the best terms. Normally, it's polite to give your employer some kind of notice.
But two major sports business writers weren't buying it. They obtained internal memos from the week before Kareem's exit, outlining plans to streamline hosting roles and enhance Smith's brand value. Translation: make Stephen A. the center of everything. And that plan kicked into overdrive almost immediately. Within days, Stephen A.'s solo segments shattered engagement records, drawing in massive numbers on both TV and digital platforms. One cable executive even leaked that ESPN had started pitching advertisers on a new era of First Take built around Stephen A. The optics were brutal. Molly was out, and Stephen's empire was expanding faster than ever. But Kareem's silence only made it worse. Aside from her chilling, stay tuned post, she hadn't said a word, and that mystery fueled the fire. Behind the scenes, sources said she wasn't done, not even close. A digital marketing manager who had worked with both Kareem and Stephen said straight up, Molly's lawyered up and waiting. And apparently, that wasn't an exaggeration. Two legal analysts claimed ESPN's own legal department had already escalated the situation, bringing in outside counsel to prepare for possible litigation. Then came the kicker. A draft legal threat dated September 19th allegedly circulated to 3 major media outlets before being yanked almost immediately. By now, the silence was deafening. ESPN stonewalled every media request, and Stephen A. dodged every direct question like his job depended on it. One longtime ESPN veteran summed it up best. Somebody blinked, and it wasn't Molly. The denials coming from the corner offices didn't sound confident anymore. They sounded desperate, like a company watching its own storm roll in, one press release at a time. Burke Magnus spent the next several days in full damage control mode, but his message didn't convince anyone. He repeated the same rehearsed line over and over again. No controversy here. There's no shoe that's going to drop. It became ESPN's corporate mantra, echoing through press calls, internal memos, and even a shaky all-hands video that leaked online. But the more he said it, the more it sounded like panic disguised as confidence. Staffers joked that every time an ESPN exec swore there was no shoe to drop, a whole rack of boots came crashing down from the ceiling.
Whether she goes to FS1 or launches her own show on YouTube, I wish Molly Qerim nothing but the best. I don't want to see her fail, but at the same time, I don't see a path to success. It is hard to build an audience by yourself. It's hard to build and sustain an audience when it's just you.
People on the Bristol lot had seen this kind of denial before, but never this loud, never this desperate, and never with this much public attention. ESPN had weathered scandals in the past, sure, but this one felt different. There was blood in the water, and everyone knew it. Each new statement from the top only made the company look like it was spinning, scrambling, trying to hold together a story that was already collapsing under its own weight. Then came the move that made everything worse. Barely a day after Molly's empty chair was left cold, ESPN rolled out Malika Andrews like a shiny new trophy. The network blasted out a press release celebrating her multi-year contract renewal, painting it as business as usual. Just another exciting talent deal. But nobody bought it. The timing had all the subtlety of a fire alarm going off in a boardroom. Within hours, Malika's name was trending right beside Molly's, and fans immediately started connecting the dots. Inside sources whispered that contingency planning for Molly's departure had been in motion long before her Instagram bombshell ever dropped. It didn't feel like coincidence. It felt calculated. The optics were terrible. One woman erased overnight, another rushed in like nothing happened. For a company that swore there was no controversy, ESPN sure looked like it was bracing for impact, and the cracks in their polished image were starting to show loud and clear. At this point, the illusion of shock surrounding Molly Qerim's exit had completely shattered. Whether intentional or not, it now looked less like a sudden firing and more like the next calculated step in ESPN's grand power shuffle. It was the corporate version of flipping the chessboard mid-game because the winner had already been chosen. The more the dust settled, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about a contract gone bad. It was about dominance, control, and a network quietly reshaping itself around one man, Stephen A. Smith. And what a power play it was. Just days after Qerim's departure, Stephen A's massive $100 million deal went public. Right as he was handed primetime NFL sideline coverage, expanded NBA duties, and a media blitz that screamed solo empire. It didn't look like a pivot. It looked like a coronation. One veteran studio director nailed it perfectly, saying, "It's not a pivot, it's a coronation." Suddenly, the chessboard was missing its queen, and the king was sitting on every square at once. Behind the scenes, whispers painted an even darker picture. In the weeks before Qerim's exit, insiders reportedly saw Smith holding closed-door meetings with top executives that stretched late into the night, with security literally clearing hallways so no one could overhear. For all the public sadness he displayed, the friendship and grief narrative was unraveling fast. Because as Qerim disappeared from screens, Stephen A. seemed to multiply. He was everywhere, on every promo, podcast, and panel. The new face of ESPN, like the network had decided to bet the entire farm on his voice alone. Rumors began to swirl that Molly's removal had nothing to do with failed negotiations. According to 3 former production insiders, one still bound by a non-disclosure agreement, the decision had been locked in for months. Molly never stood a chance, one of them claimed. They wanted Stephen A. on every inch of airspace, and nobody else in the way. As defenders of Qerim tried to push back or even speak publicly, producers were quietly reminded of their social media conduct obligations, a thinly veiled warning to stay quiet or risk their jobs. Meanwhile, Stephen A's star continued to rise, headline after headline, feature after feature, building an unstoppable momentum that made ESPN's intentions crystal clear. Then came the receipts. Again, archived footage started resurfacing weekly. Clips of Stephen A's jokes that came off more like digs at Qerim, moments where she visibly tensed or tried to hold her composure on air, debates that went from playful sparring to thinly veiled hostility. One staffer described it bluntly: it was intimidation, straight up. Nobody called it out because nobody wanted to be next. Even some of ESPN's own on-air talent, speaking off the record, began whispering the question that everyone was too scared to ask out loud. Was Molly Qerim just collateral damage, or was she the target from the very start? For now, network leadership keeps spinning the same line, business as usual, but inside and out, it's clear. This isn't business. It's a takeover, and the crown's already been claimed. But no matter how hard ESPN tried to plaster over the cracks, they just kept spreading wider and faster. Burke Magnus clung to his same worn-out script, repeating like a broken record. It's business. You try your best, and we just weren't totally aligned. But those words fell flat, especially as insiders began leaking proof that behind the scenes, chaos was running the show. Reports started surfacing about emergency tryout auditions happening at lightning speed, with replacement hosts already being lined up before Molly Qerim's chair was even cold. Multiple media outlets claimed they'd received anonymous, background-only tips that ESPN's talent bookers were told to move fast, keep things quiet, and above all, stay on brand. It was all about controlling optics, avoiding disruption, and rewriting the narrative before it spiraled out of control. But ironically, the harder they tried to contain it, the bigger the mess became. By the following week, First Take's live ratings began to stumble. Social media was on fire, fans demanding answers, dropping comments like, "What happened? And why won't anyone say it?" The silence wasn't calming the storm, it was feeding it. And right in the middle of it all, Molly's silence became her sharpest weapon yet. She hadn't given a single interview, no live statements, no leaks, nothing. Yet somehow, her absence spoke louder than anything ESPN could say. That final Instagram post of hers, the one that ended with a faint smile and the words, "Stay tuned," had become iconic. Fans screenshotted daily, flooding platforms like SportsX, guessing what's next, a tell-all podcast, A sit-down special? Or maybe the biggest move of all, a courtroom showdown that could drag ESPN's entire leadership under oath? And apparently, that last theory isn't just fantasy. According to two legal consultants who've previously worked with ESPN, the company's legal team is already on high alert, quietly prepping for a worst-case scenario. A full-blown hostile work environment lawsuit. That would mean depositions, discovery, and executives being grilled under oath. Insiders say the mere idea of discovery, with internal emails, Slack messages, and private communications exposed, is already making corporate lawyers sweat bullets. Every day, new whispers spread through the sports world. The sponsors are uneasy, the fans are angry, and Molly Qerim's silence hangs over ESPN like a thundercloud ready to burst. The network can repeat, "It's just business," all at once. But right now, business looks more like damage control. If Molly Qerim ever decides to break her silence, insiders warn it won't just be Stephen A. Smith feeling the heat. It'll be the whole brand, the executives, and the entire no controversy here fantasy going up in smoke. One internal risk memo, briefly posted to ESPN's intranet before being quietly deleted, advised staff to prepare for negative headlines, stick to unified talking points, and under no circumstances engage individually. Translation: brace for impact and keep your mouth shut. But what people didn't realize right away was that Molly's so-called farewell posts weren't just goodbyes. They were something else entirely. Fans who looked closer noticed the tone was layered, almost like a coded message. Every sentence in her Instagram story felt double-edged, gracious on the surface, but laced with warning underneath. She wrote, "The news came out earlier than I intended and not in the way I hoped." And suddenly, thousands of armchair detectives were zooming in on screenshots, circling punctuation marks, and swapping wild theories in group chats and DMs. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Her words carried this quiet edge, a mix of disappointment and defiance, like someone trying to speak through the cracks of a gag order. The phrasing hinted at betrayal inside the building, at people who had flipped on her when she least expected it. And that final, "stay tuned," it didn't read like a cliche, it read like a dare. If Molly was being silenced, she was making sure everyone knew how to read between the lines. Social media detectives caught on fast. They started treating her posts like digital breadcrumbs, hidden clues left in plain sight. Threads popped up cross-referencing the timestamps of her stories with internal ESPN leaked timelines, trying to decode patterns. Fans even dug up old photos from set, pointing out moments where Molly stood just out of frame during the high-tension episodes. Coincidence? Maybe. But in the eyes of the internet, nothing about this felt random anymore. Hashtags like #MollyCodes and #ReceiptSeason began trending, with users insisting she was sending coded signals. Subtle reminders that she hadn't lost a seat at the table, she'd just changed her strategy. Even the background of her final post set the rumor mill on fire. Some claimed the New York skyline behind her wasn't just aesthetic, it was symbolic, a quiet jab at ESPN's top power players who run the show from the city's media towers. Others thought it might have been an indirect warning to Stephen A. himself. Each post, each emoji, each tiny shift in wording became part of the game, and Molly was playing it like a chess master. With every cryptic update, she baited ESPN and Stephen A. into wondering what she might reveal next, keeping them guessing whether she had receipts tucked away just waiting for the right moment. And as the silence dragged on, those breadcrumbs started to feel like landmines, each one feeding the frenzy, each one adding another layer to the psychological warfare brewing between Molly Qerim and the network that tried to erase her. Supporters now see Molly Qerim not as a victim, but as a strategist, a chess player several moves ahead, quietly setting the stage for her own story to unfold when the timing's right. Every unanswered question, every carefully worded line in her farewell post worked like a slow-burning fuse, one she could ignite whenever she chose. The brilliance of it all? She didn't need to say a single word. Her silence was the message. Inside ESPN, that silence was haunting. Senior staff reportedly monitored her social media daily like it was breaking news, terrified that one new post could send the company into another tailspin. Producers whispered that even a single emoji from Molly might be enough to spark another PR meltdown. Her online presence stopped being a hint and turned into a warning, a quiet, looming threat that this story wasn't finished, not even close. And that's what makes it all so dangerous. Industry insiders are starting to connect the dots between this fiasco and past sports media implosions, from network feuds to legal disasters that cost millions. ESPN's crisis playbook has always depended on time, on people getting bored and moving on, but this time, it's different. Social media isn't letting go, and sponsors are whispering behind the scenes about reputational risk and ethical realignment. The whole machine feels like it's creaking under the weight of its own spin. We've seen how quickly a single lawsuit can kneecap a giant corporation. Just look at what happened to Fox after their last big on-air scandal. One bad witness, one leaked email, and it's game over. That's why the question now isn't if Molly will speak. So here's the $1 million cliffhanger. If Molly Qerim finally breaks her silence and the courtroom explodes with receipts, will ESPN's empire survive the fallout? Or are we about to watch the mighty crumble in real time, one headline at a time? Could Stephen A. Smith's throne collapse under the weight of his own ambition? Or will the network do what it's always done, buy its way through the storm and spin a brand new story? Drop your wildest theories and boldest takes in the comments below. I want to hear every spicy prediction you've got. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exclusive breakdowns just like this. And until the next bombshell drops, keep your eyes open, because in this business, silence is never the end.